Hi, folks. This is Buck Malick with another episode of Western Wisconsin Journal. Today, I have a really exciting interview for you with Christopher Mick, who is Hudson's ambassador from space, really, but you'll learn about that in a few minutes. And he's got this marvelous idea that's been passed by the park board. Looks like it'll come to fruition in the next few months, and it'll be something for everyone in the public to enjoy and relate to space. I first met Christopher in 2016 when he had a grant and needed to form a corporation. I looked back in my files just a minute ago, and in February and March of 2016, we formed Space St. Croix, which, by the way, is the name of the website, spacestcroix.org. So we formed that corporation, and then he was able to accept the grant and spend the money as he proposed. And as I looked at spacestcroix.org again today, I was reminded how he came to be such a space enthusiast. He grew up in California. His father was a retired pilot. And so he learned about aviation from his father and his father's connections. He went to 2 years of space camp, and he was all set, probably would have applied for and undoubtedly qualified to be an astronaut and all those good things, but he kept on growing and growing. He was 6'5", that's what it says, and no longer qualified. Wouldn't fit in the cockpit, I guess. Darn. So after pursuing being a college educator and doing some other things, he ultimately landed in Hudson and has been dedicating himself to teaching Hudson kids and anyone who will listen, really, about space and its relationship to their lives. So let me toss the ball after that introduction to Christopher Mick and ask Chris, would you tell us, please, about this idea you've got for the walk?
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, thank you for the wonderful introduction there. Yeah, the walk's been kind of in the back of my head for a long time. It started with me doing a lot of the third graders in Hudson all have a solar system module in their lesson plan. So I usually see all the third graders in the district for sure each year. And they were doing great planet reports, and I was seeing some of their work, their research they were doing, and I would kind of do a talk to scaffold off of that and kind of enhance their learning of it. And all of you watching can probably relate to your own, school days going through the textbooks on it, but you kind of come across that page where it's the whole solar system crammed into a page and all the planets look like they're right next door to each other and it's all right there. And it's okay for getting, the names of the planets and that, but that always kind of drove me nuts because that's not really the way the solar system's laid out. And there's all these amazing distances involved and sizes of the planets in relation to each other. Nothing's to scale on those pages. And I thought it just doesn't really do a good service kind of conveying what they're researching and what they're doing. So I had heard about in the different educational seminars around the country. I've gone to different groups that were kind of launching or installing what they call a solar system walk, which is kind of a scale model of the solar system, depending on how long they make their walk. And they'll make it all off of the sun. And for what I researched that might fit in Hudson, I went out on Dyke Road and kind of walked it off in an old school fashion just by taking long strides. And it's at the scale I thought would work. There's about a half-mile version where the sun is about an 8-inch ball. So if you start at the sun being 8 inches, you can lay all the other planets out to scale where the Earth is like the size of a peppercorn compared to the 8-inch ball of the sun. And if you go at that scale, it's about a half mile. And that actually fit on Dyke Road when I walked off from the arch there, the Hudson Arch, going all the way down to the end where you kind of get to that little beachy area at the end. It fit. It was a snug fit, but it got in there. So that was kind of when we got into the COVID-19 situation, we were being asked at the library where I do education programs there on what are some things we could do in the park or in the community, since we couldn't hold programs inside the library. What are some things we might be able to do? And so I kind of dusted off that idea, researched it a little bit more, as I said, walked it off and kind of thought that would fit. And then my wife, Tricia Christensen at Christensen Creative, she had spearheaded another program that made use of some graphics everybody's probably seen around Hudson, the I Heart Hudson campaign, those little circular graphics. And I was then bending her ear because that's what I kind of had in mind, those adhesive, rough kind of graphics you could put right down on the sidewalk, where it was kind of weather resistant and wasn't slippery. It had a rough coating to it, and putting those down. And that worked really well for her campaign earlier in the summer. I was kind of seeing how that rollout went. And so those held up really well in the months they were out. And so that gave me more confidence that maybe I could bring this to the library co-directors. And then if they approved it, take it to the Hudson City Council, and it got approved. So we're in kind of a two-phase part. We did a kind of trial program here in the fall. We ran it in October, end of September, October, pulled it down in November for the winter. It's been such a mild season. We probably could have left it up until today, but live and learn. So the thought was to pull it down in November when the bad weather came, and then we'd reinstall it again in spring 2021.
Where I have a somewhat incomplete picture of the start and finish as you as you have evolved it to the scale that you're really going to install now, Chris. Where does it start, and then where does it end, and what's the root of it?
Originally, it was going to be at the Hudson Arch and then finishing at the end, and in installing it on that first version in the fall, we encountered our first problem where it works really well on the flat sidewalk kind of leading up to the bridge, starting at the arch there. But when we got further out on Dyke Road, those of you who've walked out there, it gets very pitted due to the last time it's been resurfaced, just with all the weather, the ice and the freezing and the rain. And the vinyl graphics did not do well with that pitted surface. So I worked them in as best I could, but we got a really good rainstorm, and that water kind of just worked its way underneath the graphics and kind of started to pull them up off of Dyke Road there. So we pulled some of the outer planets, we left the inner planets, kind of revamped it as an inner solar system walk, and then we'd have the full solar system in the spring. And I reworked it to do a revised plan, and that's going to now start at the library. The welcome graphic and the sun will start on the sidewalk right in front of the library front entrance, and then it'll work its way down past like the Phipps and Pier 500 and kind of working its way down. I believe right where it ends, your last planet there, Neptune, is right getting to the boat dock area. When I kind of did a 360, when I walked it off with chalk, you're kind of behind Angel's Pet World area. And then you're kind of looking at the boat dock area. So it's going to run from the library and then work its way down to the boat dock area.
So it'll be on the east side of First Street for most of its length then.
Right. I think you got to, due to me hunting for a good, nice flat sidewalk, I think you take a crosswalk there around Pier 500 to get to the other side. I was trying to maintain a real nice surface and a little bit of a zigzag there, but it worked really well. And I think it'll hold up hopefully really well for all summer. We're going to install in the spring and leave it up through the summer.
I see. And it's not now did you still get a half mile? So you maintain the same scale?
Yes, I wanted to keep the same scale because the graphics came out beautifully for it that we used for the initial one. And they were all incorporating that scale I mentioned at the top, where the sun's about 8-inch circular, and then everything else to kind of notes. It's the size of a peppercorn at this scale. It's the size of a walnut at this scale, kind of like that going through. And so I was hoping to keep that same scale, that we could keep those graphics the way they were. We're so happy with the way they came out, and it fit just the way I kind of talked about it, starting at the library, walking it out again. It snaked its way down, and I got right till almost the end of sidewalk there, getting down to the boat landing area, but it fit, and I think it'll work.
Gee, that sounds exciting. Now, should I go to your website to learn more information before setting out on the walk? Are there brochures, flyers?
I think we'll put it up on the website, the library. I think we're going to add it to the website. We're also going to have a little 8.5 by 11 kind of guide map. So on the front side is going to have little QR codes where you can scan it with a smart device, and it'll take you to little animated films about the planet so you can learn some more. And then on the back side of the map, there'll be the little route that you're walking so people know how much further they have to go, because we didn't want people to get to Mars and they're not seeing a planet for a while and they think the walk's over. You got to keep going. You know, it's that half mile. So we were going to have the route kind of drawn on the back of the map so you could refer to that, and the planets will be kind of approximated where they are along the walk, and so you'll know when to take the crosswalk and when you're approaching the end and things like that.
In that scale, do you happen to just sort of remember offhand how far is Mercury from the sun? That presumably is just a few steps?
Yeah,
separation
the way we had it, off the top of my head, when we had it at the arch, you put the sun down. I think you're walking about 11 paces, if I remember. It's 11 paces to get to Mercury. Another 6 or 7 was to Venus. 6 or 7 past that is the Earth. Then you're going a little bit further out to go to Mars, and then that's where we fit. Kind of started around the arch, and then we stopped with Mars around the entrance to the bridge there. And that was a nice sidewalk. So we had our inner solar system. Then you really have to start walking to get out. You're about another, again, I'm ballparking, but about 260 paces to get to Jupiter, past Mars. So that's when we were getting the outer planets, and they were all getting on that dimpled part of Dyke Road, and they were just starting to pull up. So we pulled all the outer planets when I was kind of inspecting them on my daily walks out there. Some were hanging in there, some weren't doing so well, and we kind of just made the decision to pull all the outer planets and just have an inner solar system, which actually kind of worked for us, because then we talked at the library. We were doing the flyers and that on. It was the early stage of exploration of our solar system, and we were exploring the planets that were closest to us, and then we mounted the Voyager program in the late 70s for exploring the outer planets that we hadn't been able to get to yet, going to Uranus and Neptune, and Jupiter and Saturn were the early stops on what they called the Grand Tour for the Voyager 1 and 2 spacecraft. So that kind of worked out in retrospect, where we could kind of focus a little bit more on the exploration and how it happened. And it was in stages. We didn't explore all the planets at the same time. It didn't all happen, in a couple of years. It took quite a long time to get to all the planets.
So in your newest layout, the inner solar system will probably all be adjacent to the FIPS, but maybe between the FIPS and the beach house.
Yeah, I think walking it out, I started, I grabbed a piece of chalk and walking it out. You have the sun and the inner planets there kind of on that long sidewalk in front of the library, and then you start kind of having to make that turn by the FIPS and going down. You're gonna have to go for a while until you get to Jupiter, and then you'll keep going out.
Well, that's going to be interesting in itself. You said Neptune's going to be the last one, and
right.
Everybody wants to know, what about Pluto? I think it was in my lifetime that Pluto was added, and then it's been in my lifetime that Pluto was deleted. And right. So what's the status of Pluto?
Pluto is, I always tell this to all the kids, if you love Pluto, Pluto's still there, and it doesn't care what we call it. It's still orbiting the sun. And if you want to call it a planet, you can call it a planet. For its official classification for the Union of Astronomers, they have reclassified it as a dwarf planet. So dwarf planet is a category where they're trying to come up with a better definition of what constitutes a planet. Because some astronomers are saying, if you're going to call all these objects a planet that are fairly small, and there's objects out in the Kuiper belt, which is the zone of kind of dirty snowballs that's out past Neptune there, you have this whole zone of what they call Kuiper belt objects. Are we going to start naming, every time we discover one of those, is that going to be called a planet? We got to come up with a better rationale for this. So love it or hate it, the astronomers kind of came up with some criteria, and not to go in depth on all of it, but the rough version is a planet has to be able to clear its own orbital path. So if there's any debris there that it's, knocking that out by gravity, it's pulling it in, it's becoming part of the planet, or it's becoming a moon, pulled in. It's got to have enough gravity to do that. It has to, excuse me, have enough mass to be spherical. To be a sphere, it can't be we see some of those asteroids, if you've seen pictures that are kind of a lumpy potato looking, or, bi-lobed, they have, kind of looks like two snowballs kind of crushed together. So it's got to be enough mass to be spherical, clear its orbital path, and then it has to be in the plane of the sun. And that's another knock on Pluto, is if you kind of laid the planets out on a giant pizza plate, it's the sun in the center and the planets are kind of there. If you look at their orbits, they're all kind of relative to the sun there on that bad pizza plate metaphor. But if you look at Pluto's orbit, it's really inclined compared to the rest of the planet. So it kind of orbits at this angle relative to the sun in the center versus all the other planets. They're kind of orbiting in that pizza plate metaphor. So those things kind of had some knocks on Pluto, and that led to it being kind of reclassified as a dwarf planet.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. What, besides these tidbits of specific information about the solar system, are there other things that you hope people observing and using the solar walk will take away from it?
We tried to hold a multimedia approach to it, knowing that people might be interacting this different ways. Some people just out on a walk for the dog, maybe some teachers sending their kids to go check it out because we're in that phase of the year where they're working on their solar system projects, in the library promoting it for a family or educational activity. So we tried to work some imagery of each planet there. We would say how far you are away from the sun. We would say what size it is at this scale. Like I said, at this size, it would be a peppercorn, whatnot. We listed the first exploration of that planet. So what country, what year, what the name of the spacecraft was, and then a fact about the planet, how many moons it has, how long its day is, things like that, a little factoid, like a quick fact for that. So we tried to put all that. And then, as I said, on the maps we're giving out for at the library, it's got a little QR code by each planet. So if you wanted to learn more, it'll take you to the NASA website, kind of an animation of the solar system where all the planets are kind of more dynamically moving than just the static images we have. And that, so we thought between the map and the handout and the things on the individual planets, it would give you some different information depending on what you knew or didn't know. And we'd hope we'd surprise some people if you know all your planets and where they are, and that you'd still find some information in there that might be a new thing you hadn't heard before.
Fascinating. You have a you have a passion for space, for things space related. Why are you passionate about STEAM education?
It's a great question. As you said in my intro, I kind of drank the Kool-Aid when I was a kid. So I was very excited about it. I can't remember a time I wasn't excited about it. So that might have been because of my father being a pilot. He was more prone to take me to air shows and to get me up early when I was wanting to see a space shuttle launch. Take me to the nearby NASA Center, Ames Research Center in Moffett Field, California for a tour. So I might have had more opportunities and experiences as a kid. And when STEM was becoming a buzzword in education to try to help kids' math scores and science scores that weren't really doing that great across the state and across the country, I kind of had the idea that maybe some of the things that excited me so much about the space program and engineering and astronomy when I was a kid, maybe if I did a program like that, that would connect with some kids out in this area. Because I just saw when I moved up from Chicago that there really wasn't a nearby NASA center, an Air Force base, any of the kind of things that had really kind of connected with me. And so I thought, because of social media and the access to everything, it might be pretty easy to kind of put all these things together in a fashion that would connect with some of the kids and maybe just lead to more questions or get them interested about something that they had never thought of before. So that was kind of the inspiration for getting the program going. And then it was so well received in the community, as you mentioned, with with receiving some grants and people that wanted to help, then it kind of became, instead of just a one-off thing, would there be a good way to set this up as an economic model to be able to keep doing things each year? And that's when was talking about setting it up as a educational nonprofit, and trying to come up with a structure for being able to keep it going each year, to kind of add the resources and add the opportunities and what we could offer, and make it kind of a year-round thing instead of just that little sliver of the school year where the third graders are working on, their solar system projects.
You have been, for these many years now, educating, it seems to me, everybody who will listen, who shows the least appetite for knowledge about space and the disciplines that are required in order to take advantage of space, the sciences, technologies, engineering, mathematics, all those related things. And you can be reached, I take it, through your website, spacestcroix.org. I notice you also have a Facebook presence and an Instagram presence, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And are you so? I should have asked you this question before we came on. So if I embarrass you, too bad. You could just refuse to answer. But I take it that you're perfectly willing to have people at least ask you if you're available to teach something to practically any group, aren't you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, and I do the STEM programs at the library, and I also work as a NASA solar system ambassador. So those are for, because when I set up the nonprofit, that was all just for Hudson. And so I wanted to say, if anybody was donating funds, it's going 100% back into Hudson's, programs and that. But then as people were hearing about what I was doing, or teachers were sharing things, or was getting in the media, I was getting requests from other communities in Minnesota and regional things. And I didn't want to say no, as you were saying. Anybody that wants to talk about or have a program, I want to be able to say yes and do that program. So that led me to being a NASA solar system ambassador, because I found out NASA had a program, kind of an outreach educational thing, where they get a bunch of requests and they can't fulfill all the requests they get for speakers and presenters. So they try to have regional people around the country that can answer those requests and be the kind of subject matter expert on a mission or a thing they want to talk about. So yeah, I've done that with the Bell Museum and the Science Museum Minnesota and Woodbury, and going all Edina and all over the place for that. So that's all under the Solar System Ambassador Program. NASA sends me the supplies for handouts. I can do all that. Space St. Croix does all the Hudson programs. And then if there's an outside of school thing, we get requests from the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, YMCA, things like that. We do that. And then there's just a small fee, usually to cover our time or expenses or videos or whatever we're providing for that, since it's not in like the day-to-day school situation for that. And then with everything going on now with the COVID-19, we've switched to a kind of hybrid where I'm dropping off a banker's box of materials with a teacher that wants a program, and then we'll set up a Zoom like we're doing now. So I can share the program or answer questions with the kids on a Zoom. And then I drop off the physical, handouts, the stickers or bookmarks or fact sheets or whatnot. So then the teachers can distribute those, since I'm not, going to any schools this year on site. So we've tried to figure out the media way to do things, and the libraries run with that too, where I'm putting a lot of STEM interviews and videos up on their library YouTube channel, because again, we're not doing any programs on site, but we wanted to keep putting out STEM content, or find a way to keep kids engaged or have something fun to show them. So we're putting everything up on the YouTube channel that way.
Thank you. The solar system walk sounds like it's really going to be fun. I look forward to it myself, getting out there this coming spring and seeing just how it works and what I can learn from it. It sounds like you're staying pretty close to your bylaws, which is good, lawyer-client type of conversation to have. I want to read for your viewers those words that I alluded to earlier, and then I'll give you the final words if you want. Sure. Space St. Croix is an effort to bring cool information and experiences about the universe to Hudson, Wisconsin. Why? because the universe is awesome and kids can be a part of it. We remember that first walk on the moon and the possibilities and dreams that it generated. By showing kids the worlds beyond our own planet, we hope they will someday reach them. Science, technology, engineering can all take you to anywhere. You just have to dream it up first.
That sounds good.
Yeah, well, they're your words. I hope you approve. Anything you want to say in closing, Chris?
Well, I forgot to share. I should have shown this at the beginning, but this is an example of that scale model, the solar system thing, and this is one of the things I've used in classrooms. So I found a great astronomy artist in Europe who produces these scale planets of the solar system. And so I bought, and so this is a scale version of the planet Mars to the planet Earth. So this is a great one, and you can do it with all the planets. I just am holding up these two that I have, but these were great, to pass around. So then the kids really kind of get it, because again, when you just say the planets, a lot of them think Mars is almost the same size as Earth, just because it gets talked about all the time. We're going there, and then it really gets the light bulb going off. We're like, wow, that is a lot smaller, than the Earth. And then we talk about how much less you would weigh on Mars because of the lower gravity. You'd weigh 60% less on Mars than you would on Earth. So these were things that I did in the classroom to kind of help get that point across. And then again, since I can't hand physical, planets around and do that, that kind of, again, pulled that out of the drawer where I had this idea in the back of my head for a number of years on the solar system walk, doing that. So very excited about, it coming together, and we're going to try to do promotions for it in the year. I've got these packs of solar system trading cards that trying to get a light there. So when we're going through the summer, I'll be, passing these out as people are walking by and exploring. They might see a person wearing space garb that will walk up to them and hand them a pack of trading cards for, enjoying the walk and things like that. So we're just hoping that it's a popular community activity and that the kids love it, and it kind of ties into some fun school stuff they could do for their research projects. Been talking to some of the teachers already about, that we'll have that out, and they can encourage their students to go down and check it out when we get it going in the spring. So just hoping it's well received, and we got a lot of good feedback when we did the initial rollout here in the fall, and looking forward to next summer.
It should be great. Well, viewers, that's this episode of Western Wisconsin Journal, and wasn't it fun? I say it was. It was great fun. Thank you, Christopher Mick. This
Thanks,
is
sir.
Buck Malick signing off.